I was asked to deliver a controversial speech today. I promise to deliver. Since it's early in the morning, let's make a small wake-up test. Who believes that housekeeping is good for cybersecurity? 1, 2, 3, good. I can confirm this, and I think when you're doing housekeeping, you know what you have to clean up, you know what you find in your garage, in your rooms and everything, and only when you know what's in your house, you know what you have to clean, to protect, so it's transparency. And what I also liked on Raluca's speech, it's a kind of organized approach, and this is when I see the picture how they are organized and they are not wearing hoodies and looking, let's say, like youngsters. It's a military discipline behind. And this is when you're cleaning up your house, you're somehow disciplined, you're organized, you know what you're talking about, and that's very important in security. So, this guy here is hungry and he will not catch you because you're organized and you know what you're talking about. And you know on my title, being the second slowest gazelle. We are in the food service, we are a B2B, we are selling bread, we are baking bread. If we would get attacked, you would feel it because you go to the bakery and there is nothing. So you would become hungry, and this is why we have to try to do a good job in cybersecurity, constantly baking bread to feed you. You know this kind of analogy of the gazelle and the lion. I learned from another CISO that when you look on the picture of cybersecurity, there is a lion, there are a couple of gazelles, and normally you would think like you have to be the quickest gazelle to be protected by the lion, because if you're the quickest one, you will never get catched. Then he told me, no, correct it. You have to be the second slowest one. So if you're using this one, you don't have to master it, but you just have to be the second slowest one. And I got a couple of years before, I got a study from McKinsey who said, yeah, when you're following this approach, you're more or less taking your coins on a very efficient way on security. So you're not overspending, you're not overdoing it. So just try to be the second slowest gazelle. That's much more cost efficient, and the CFO was clapping the hand and said, yeah, luckily now I have a good reason to reduce the cybersecurity budget because I think we're overdoing it. And this is where I said, like, is it really smart to be the second slowest gazelle? Now, some of the thoughts which I attach to this is, when you use this analogy, you have to ask yourself, who is the lion? The problem in cybersecurity is you don't know the attacker. Even when you are attacked, you don't know who really attacked you. And as we learned from Raluca, it's not a teenager in a hoodie, it's an organization, which is more or less spread over continents, probably even globally. So how can you more or less rate yourself, you're the second slowest gazelle when you don't know the lion? It's guesswork. The other thought was, if you are in the belief to be the second slowest gazelle, who is the slowest? So also there, it's guessworking. When you don't know who is the slowest, you don't know what the slowest is doing, and you cannot differentiate and say, because of this reason, I'm not the slowest gazelle. So that's also quite fuzzy, quite blurry, and it doesn't help you to really position yourself. Is it good enough to be, let's say, the second slowest? If you don't know who is the slowest, if you don't know who is the lion, who is attacking you, so it's also guessworking. So also there, it didn't work out. Do we have enough funds to be quick enough to review the strategy? If you're believing cybersecurity is about saving money, then I can only recommend that you more or less just calculate or ask your insurance guy of the company, and for sure most of you have somebody who works with insurances of the company. Ask him, how much is it worth when the company would stand for an entire day? Normally the guys have this number because they have to more or less report it to the insurance because this is driving how expensive the insurance for the company is. So these numbers, how much is a day of complete outage of a company, are available. Surprisingly, the IT guys, the security guys, don't work with this number and they have no clue. This number will help you to understand how much you can spend on cybersecurity, because this number, a complete outage of a day, is so high that you probably can triple your cybersecurity budget and you're still cheap. But if you are treated like the rest of IT as a cost factor, you're always losing the game. What kind of tools are on the market to protect us? That's also something. And this is why I ask you, who is believing on housekeeping? If you believe this is a tool game, I'm happy to destroy this. By just buying tools and hoping that the tool is solving your issue, this is wrong. Because it's not like you have a technical attack and you can protect yourself technically. Of course, you can do so. It's like you have at home a door with a lock and you need a key. Having a door is a good thing. Having a lock is also good. But at the end, if you leave the door open, the key and the door and everything is useless. So it's at the end a people business. It's how your people in the organization work, how your cybersecurity, how your IT team is working. So it's a people business. It's not a tool business. It's not solving your issue when you just buy tools and tools and tools. Yeah? And these are just some thoughts which I took behind the analogy, and I thought, like, my target as a CISO is very simple. I don't want to be eaten by an attacker. I want to sleep well. I'm a very simple, basic man, and I'm counting on my sleep because this drives me every morning awake to the office. So I thought, like, if I want to sleep well, what kind of message do I have to teach my people, because my people are responsible that I'm sleeping well? The first thing is, when I looked at our organization, user awareness is low. We didn't do really training. When you talk to the people about cybersecurity, everybody got it from the news, but there was nothing else. So there was no understanding, what do I have to do? What do I, as a user, have to contribute to keep the company safer? And the most horrible example was that I had the impression that the people felt like it's an IT issue. So IT has to more or less solve the issue, and it's not up to me. And there is this joke where we say IT can be so wonderful without the user. From a cybersecurity point of view, I can only confirm it. If I want to be safe, I exclude the user from the system, and I can sleep well. So one thing is that we have to understand that at the end, we have a lot of users working with the systems, doing crazy things on what we are providing them, and they have to be aware that they are important in respect of cybersecurity. It sounds really basic, and I know there are a lot of articles and speeches and, but when there is so much around on information on the topic user awareness, I'm still asking myself what went wrong in our company, because these guys have to believe it's an IT issue. Yeah? The next topic is, do we act like a procurement? So when I'm coming with, we need to do this and this and this, I'm getting like, it's too expensive, we have to negotiate and rule, can we do it cheaper? And instead of getting something where we have to believe that it's really moving us forward, it has to be cheap. And the discount is important. And that's also strange, because again, if we would have an outage, the discount would be gone immediately, and we would more or less erase the flag and say, is it the right decision? Was it the right direction to just say, it's cost efficient? Do we have transparency? Back to the housekeeping. If you have a house and you don't know how many doors you have, you don't know how many keys you should have. So you're sitting in front of your 5 keys, you don't know how many doors you have, how many locks are in these doors, and you feel protected? I wouldn't. So transparency, it sounds really strange, but transparency is for me a key element. If you don't know what's standing around in your organization, you have no clue what you have to protect, so everything what you're doing is guessworking. And it's really something very basic. Then the other thing is, we are not consequent. and probably you're doing hopefully a little bit better, but Aryzta, I would say, is the company of the half-finished projects. Now, when you do half-finished projects, it's like you construct the house, and you have probably some doors, but you more or less stopped implementing windows. So you have a door with a lock, but you have a window, which is just an invitation for a cyber attacker. So be consequent in what you're doing. Finish it. And I know the last 10 meters to finish a task are the most stressful and the most painful, and quite often people lose interest because it was already such a stress. But the last 10 meters in respect of cybersecurity are the crucial one, because you finish your job and then you know it's really done. Have a strategy. And the strategy doesn't mean that you have to have a huge meeting and design something complex. A strategy is that you have to have a target where you start working against it, and when you reach the target, you just continue. And you do it every year. You're setting a 3-year target. What kind of status do you want to reach? And surprisingly, in cybersecurity, I see quite often that we are buying tools, but we have no strategy, and then we have more or less conflicting situations. We are discussing at the moment how many firewalls do we really need, and we have some parts of the organization saying as much firewalls as we can get, of course. Other people say be pragmatic. I'm more on the pragmatic thing because of complexity management. As more components you take in, as more complex you are, and as harder it is to fix issues. So this is a really tough discussion, but if you don't have a strategic target, against what do you measure all your actions and all your projects and activities? Another topic is no feedback culture. Now, a simple topic is the phishing button. There are so many tools around and buttons around where you can more or less press and say, oh, this is a phishing mail, and then it disappears. Perfect. It disappears in the black hole, and the user presses this because he heard, yeah, you're supposed to press it. So the first 10 times he's pressing it, he's getting no feedback, and then he's losing interest. So your entire phishing campaign more or less went down the drain because the people lost interest. Now, if you tell him more or less after he pressed, thanks for pressing the phishing button, we come back with an analysis. And then he's getting a feedback telling him, hey, this was a marketing campaign, not dangerous. Or he's getting something, thanks that you pressed the button, this was a phishing attack, well done, well recognized. Create a feedback culture to keep the people motivated. When you're going home and you're saying nothing to your wife, you will get the receipt after a certain couple of months. If you're going every day home and you give feedback, hey, you're pretty, I like you, you're getting a nice dinner, you get a good feedback. So give feedback. You do it in private. Why in hell do we don't use the same principle in the company and we give the people feedback to keep them motivated on the marathon of being sensitive to cybersecurity? And it's the same with if you do not do housekeeping at home, you're at the end messy and you cannot enter your home because there is so much rubbish and waste in the home that you cannot open the door. So just apply what works at home, also the company. And user comfort is something which I'm also quite often hearing. We shouldn't do these activities because we are destroying the user comfort. Forget it. Security is nothing about comfort. But it's a fine line. Think about your key. I mean, in the good old days, the key was big and heavy. And nowadays, you have a fingertip. So think about how you can make cybersecurity comfortable for the user. Because as long as it's comfortable, he's accepting it. Nobody goes at work to go around something when it's comfortable. People go around your measures when they're uncomfortable. So always bear in mind, implement security measures in such a way that it's comfortable for them, because then he will not walk away and try to bypass them. It's so simple. Yeah? It's so simple. Good. So, our way forward. Okay, formatting didn't work properly. Housekeeping, CMDB is a must, and that's not for discussion. Internally, for me, this is really a principle. It's not for discussion. If you have a CMDB, you know what you have to protect, and it has to be accurate and up-to-date, and then you can more or less start clustering, placing your message, and like military service, you go ahead. Identify consequently the user. Multi-factor authentication, develop a holistic strategy, increase awareness. These are all measures which are so damned important. And you see on this list nothing complicated. It's really simple, pragmatic, it's straightforward. But it helps you to increase the maturity, make security tangible, and explainable to the people. So I would say, for me, the analogy is not being the second slowest gazelle. I try to be an ugly target. And like Raluca correctly said, it's just a matter when you will be attacked, but it's crystal clear that you will be attacked sooner than later. So instead of saying, I try to really prevent that I'm attacked, I try to be an ugly target. So you're either he is successful, but then I have to have the capability to handle the attack properly and quickly to minimize the impact, or the attacker pulls back because he figured out like, oh, that's too complicated, there are easier victims on the market. And this is why, for me, the analogy is more like being an ugly target instead of the second slowest gazelle, because it's much more tangible and I can work much stronger with it. In a summary, on how do we become a difficult target, transparency, being really specific, no blurry discussions, being proactive. So instead of waiting that we have an incident and then we are doing learning sessions, we are trying to more or less learn by having a segregation of duty. We have a security officer. He is supposed to be ugly and difficult and challenging us on a daily basis, and we have to accept this, because otherwise we are looking in our mirror saying, wow, we are the most beautiful one, and it's not true. Being holistic, you cannot just isolate the topic. At the end, you have to more or less see it holistically if you want to create appropriate measures, feedback-oriented, and this is going across all levels in the organization, from the user to the board of directors. And level conform, a user needs to be differently approached than a board member. And if you attack a board member with technical specifications, you will not get a second chance to talk about cybersecurity in a board session. So the challenge is, how do you explain a non-security guy, non-technical guy, what you're trying to do and why you want to have more funds? And that's a challenge, but if you manage this one, they're becoming your best friends and you're really creating some progress in cybersecurity. It took us 1 year to do that you also have a number, as most of you are number sensitive. 1 year took us in Aryzta to change the board impression about cybersecurity. Cool. Thanks a lot.